It was supposed to be a regular morning at the courthouse. No media frenzy, no national headlines. Just another public hearing tucked away in a quiet courtroom in downtown Tallahassee. But as fate would have it, that morning would become anything but ordinary. The moment Pam Bondi walked into the courtroom, she carried with her not just legal briefs and a confident stride, but something more. Something subtle yet powerful. A small silver cross delicately hanging around her neck. A personal item. A symbol of faith. Something millions of Americans wear every day without giving it a second thought. To most, it would be invisible, barely noticed. But not today. The atmosphere in the courtroom was calm at first. The judge, an experienced man known for his strict adherence to procedure, greeted the room in his usual firm tone. Lawyers shuffled their papers. Observers whispered softly from the back. Pam took her seat, her demeanor calm and professional. The kind of presence that came from decades of courtroom experience. When her name was called, she stood, approached the center, and began presenting her statement, articulate, firm, and respectful. Her voice carried the kind of legal confidence that doesn't need to raise volume to be heard. And then, like a lightning bolt out of a clear sky, it happened. The judge suddenly leaned forward, his brow furrowed. He interrupted Pam mid-sentence, not with a legal objection, not to clarify a point, but with something that instantly froze the air in the room. Ms. Bondi, he said slowly, before we proceed any further, I need you to remove your necklace. There was a moment of confusion. She looked up. Puzzled. The cross, he continued. It could be viewed as a religious expression, and in the interest of maintaining the secular nature of this courtroom, I must ask you to take it off. For a few seconds, no one spoke. You could hear the soft hum of the air conditioner, the creak of an old bench as someone shifted uncomfortably. It was as if time had stopped. Did he really just ask that? Was a federal judge, in a courtroom governed by the United States Constitution, seriously requesting that someone remove a symbol of their faith? To some, it might have seemed like a minor issue. A necklace, a piece of jewelry. But to those who understand the meaning behind such a request, it was something else entirely. This wasn't just about a cross. This was about freedom, about rights, about the very core of the First Amendment. Pam didn't respond immediately. She didn't lash out or raise her voice. She simply paused, straightened her posture, and looked directly at the bench. Her expression remained composed, but there was something new in her eyes. A subtle fire. A determination. Your Honor, she said softly, yet clearly enough for everyone to hear. With all due respect, are you instructing me to set aside my constitutional rights to continue participating in this hearing? The judge blinked. For the first time, he seemed taken aback. Pam continued. This cross does not speak. It does not disrupt. It does not impose. It merely reflects who I am. A person of faith. My words, my arguments, my position here today, none of those are religious in nature. But my right to stand here as I am, that is protected by the very Constitution this courtroom is sworn to uphold. A murmur rippled through the room. You could feel it, the shift in energy, the quiet stirrings of a crowd that had come expecting legal arguments, but now found themselves witnessing something far more profound. This wasn't just a legal hearing anymore. It had become a battleground. Not of politics, not of theology, but of principle. The judge sat back, visibly uncomfortable. His robe suddenly seemed heavier, his gavel quieter, and for the first time that morning, it was Pam Bondi who held the attention, not just of the courtroom, but of something bigger, something that would soon reach the eyes and ears of America. The silence in the courtroom was deafening. After Pam Bondi's calm but firm response, the judge seemed momentarily frozen, as if he hadn't anticipated any pushback, as if he expected quiet compliance. But what he got instead was the first spark of a constitutional storm. Pam stood there, unwavering. No theatrics, no raised voice, just sheer clarity of purpose. And then she took one step forward, not physically, but legally. She reached into her briefcase and calmly pulled out a single sheet of paper. It was folded, but crisp. Clean. Ready, Your Honor, she said, placing the paper gently on the lectern. I anticipated this possibility. That's why I came prepared. The judge raised an eyebrow. Pam looked directly at him and added, what you're requesting violates the First Amendment. And while I respect the decorum of your courtroom, I will not voluntarily forfeit rights that are not yours to take. Boom! The quiet confidence in her tone was more powerful than any outburst. She wasn't grandstanding. She wasn't seeking applause. She was invoking the highest law of the land. And then, like a seasoned lawyer who knew exactly what she was doing, Pam began laying out her argument, point by point, calm, precise, devastating, the legal breakdown that changed the game. Pam began with the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. She explained, for the benefit of both the judge and the increasingly attentive room, that this amendment doesn't just protect speech. It also protects expression, including religious symbols worn in public and professional spaces. She cited Tinkerville, Des Moines Independent Community School District, 1969, the landmark Supreme Court case where students wore black armbands to protest the Vietnam War. The court ruled, Pam said, that students don't shed their constitutional rights at the schoolhouse gate. And likewise, I don't shed mine at the courtroom door. She wasn't done. She referenced Employment Division Smith and Barwell, Hobby Lobby stores, both modern precedents dealing with religious freedom in the workplace and in government interaction. The government may regulate conduct, Your Honor, but it may not police conscience. At that moment, the courtroom wasn't just witnessing a defense. It was witnessing a masterclass. Pam's strategy, flipping the narrative. Pam wasn't arguing for special treatment. She wasn't trying to change the rules. She was reminding the court of the very foundation on which the rules were built. She asked one question, one that lingered in the air like a challenge. If a small cross on a necklace is too controversial for this courtroom, what's next? Wedding rings, headscarves, yarmulkes. Her tone never turned hostile. It was filled with measured urgency, the kind that made even those who disagreed lean in and listen. The judge, clearly caught off guard, attempted a rebuttal. He argued that it wasn't a matter of faith, but optics, that the court had to remain visibly neutral. But Pam's counter was brilliant. Neutrality does not mean erasure. You don't promote fairness by silencing individuality. You promote it by ensuring everyone's rights are equally protected, even and especially when it's uncomfortable. At this point, the courtroom was spellbound. No one checked their phones. No one whispered. Even the stenographer paused for a second longer than necessary. The judge's dilemma. Now the pressure was on the bench. This wasn't about one person anymore. If the judge held his ground, he'd be challenging decades of constitutional precedent, all because of a necklace. But if he backed down, it would mean publicly acknowledging his misstep. Pam, for her part, offered a gracious way out. Your Honor, I am here to present a legal argument. If my necklace distracts from that, then I ask you to focus not on my appearance, but on my reasoning. A pause. Then, slowly, the judge adjusted his glasses. He nodded once, then again, and finally, he spoke. Miss Bondi, your points are well taken. You may proceed. No apology, but also no demand to remove the cross. Pam Bondi had just defended her rights on the record, and won, not with shouting, not with drama, but with brilliance, preparation, and constitutional clarity. The courtroom didn't erupt in applause. There were no loud cheers, no dramatic slams of the gavel, no reporters bursting through the doors. But make no mistake, what happened in that room that day was seismic. Pam Bondi had walked in as just another legal professional. Respected, yes, but not expected to spark a national debate. She walked out as a symbol, not of division, but of what happens when someone calmly stands their ground for what they believe in. The world reacts. By the time she got to her car, the courtroom transcript had already leaked. A clerk with a smartphone and a Twitter account had posted one quote from the hearing. Neutrality does not mean erasure. You don't promote fairness by silencing individuality. Pam Bondi. Within hours, it had gone viral, trending on Twitter, debated on cable news, quoted on podcasts, dissected on talk shows, and reposted across Facebook feeds by pastors, teachers, lawyers, and even atheists, each interpreting the moment in their own way. On one side of the conversation, there were those who praised Pam Bondi as a champion of religious liberty. On the other, some argued that the courtroom should remain a strictly neutral space, free of all symbols, religious or otherwise. But the vast majority weren't choosing sides. They were asking questions. Where is the line between personal expression and public decorum? When do rules protect fairness? And when do they suppress freedom? And most importantly, are we still a society that tolerates difference in public spaces? Beyond the courtroom, a bigger conversation begins. For Pam, it was never about going viral. She didn't do interviews for a while. She declined TV spots. She didn't release a statement. But when she eventually spoke, it wasn't for attention. It was to refocus the conversation. This wasn't about me, she said. This was about reminding people, and maybe even judges, that rights only matter if we're willing to assert them. Respectfully, thoughtfully, but boldly, and she did. But here's the kicker. Her quiet stand inspired others to speak up too. A school teacher in Kansas posted a photo of her small cross necklace with the caption, "I won't take it off." A Muslim city clerk in Michigan wrote a blog about why she wears her hijab with pride, even when people stare. A Jewish college student spoke on his campus radio about being proud to wear his Star of David, despite feeling pressure to blend in. What started as a judge's awkward request became a moment of national reckoning. Not just about faith, but about authenticity. Not just about courts, but about courage. Reflection. What do we really stand for? In the noise of politics and headlines, it's easy to forget this. America was founded on the radical idea that we don't all have to agree, but we must all have the right to be, to show up, to wear what matters to us, to speak with conviction, to believe or not believe, and not be asked to hide that for the sake of someone else's comfort. And as this story reminds us, the First Amendment isn't just words on parchment, it's a shield. And sometimes it takes someone like Pam Bondi, not yelling, not fighting, but standing firm with reason and grace to remind us why that shield exists. Closing message, call to action. So, what do you think? Was the judge right to make that request? Or did Pam do exactly what America needs more of? Respectful defiance and defense of principle? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read everyone. Let's talk about faith, freedom, and finding common ground without losing ourselves. Subscribe for more true courtroom stories that challenge the way we think and remind us who we are. Share this video if you believe courage can still be quiet and powerful. Because sometimes one voice, one moment, one tiny silver cross can shake the silence.